Ethan arrived in Willow Creek just as the sun was slipping behind the mountains, painting the small town gold and rose. He had driven 4 hours from his college campus, thinking the weekend at home would give him a break from exams, group projects, and the constant noise of student life. But the moment he stepped into the house, he felt something strange in the air. It was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, but a tense quiet, the kind that made his skin tighten as if something important had happened before he arrived. His father was not home yet, which was normal for a Friday evening, but Claire's car was in the driveway. Usually she greeted him as soon as he walked in. This time she didn't. That alone made him pause. He dropped his bag near the living room, listening for signs of movement. The house had the soft glow of warm lamps, but there was no sound except the distant hum of the refrigerator. Ethan called out Claire, but got no response. He tried to push away the uneasy feeling and walked down the hallway toward the guest room where he usually stayed, trying to convince himself he was imagining the tension. But halfway down the hall, he noticed something odd. Claire's bedroom door was not fully closed. She was always careful with that door. She valued privacy, always respectful, always considerate. She once told him that keeping boundaries helped a blended family stay healthy. It was one of the things he admired about her. So the sight of that half-open door tugged at him harder than he expected. Light spilled into the hallway, a soft amber haze from her bedside lamp. Something didn't feel right. He slowed down, his steps quiet on the carpet. The door wasn't just open, it was slightly pushed inward, as if someone had entered in a hurry, not thinking about closing it. Ethan hesitated. He wasn't the kind of person who snooped. Claire had treated him kindly since she married his father 5 years ago, and he respected her deeply. But a quiet worry began to build in his chest. He didn't hear her voice. He didn't hear water running. He didn't hear anything. He took a breath and gently tapped on the door. Claire? It's me. I just got in. There was still no answer. That silence made the worry stronger. Something was wrong. He swallowed and nudged the door open another inch, just enough to peek inside. He expected to see her reading in bed or folding laundry or maybe asleep under the blankets. What he saw instead froze him. Claire was sitting on the edge of the bed, hunched forward slightly, holding her phone with both hands. Her shoulders were trembling. The light from the screen cast a pale glow across her face, making the tears on her cheeks shine. Her breath was unsteady, like she had been trying to calm herself but couldn't. Ethan's first instinct wasn't confusion, it was concern. Claire was not someone who cried easily. She faced everything with steady patience, even difficult days or arguments with his father. Seeing her like that hit him hard. He stepped in gently, quietly. Claire? Hey, what's wrong? She didn't react right away. She blinked as if waking from a deep dream, and quickly wiped her face with the back of her hand. But she couldn't hide how shaken she was. Her eyes were red, her voice weak when she finally whispered his name. Ethan, I didn't hear you come in. He walked closer but not too close, keeping a respectful distance. I didn't mean to come in like this, he said softly. The door was open. Are you okay? What happened? She looked down at her phone as if it were something dangerous. Something she regretted holding. She seemed torn, like she wanted to hide it, but also didn't have the strength to pretend everything was fine. Before she could turn the screen away, Ethan's eyes caught a reflection. A message. A picture. Someone familiar. Someone he knew. His stomach dropped. He didn't mean to see it, but the glimpse was clear enough that he couldn't pretend it wasn't real. He spoke before he could stop himself. Is that Dad's coworker? Claire's lips parted, her breath catching. The question hung in the room like smoke. For a moment, neither of them moved. Ethan felt the truth shifting around them, heavy and sharp. He didn't know exactly what he had seen, but it was enough to make his mind race. The coworker was a woman Ethan had met once or twice, someone his father talked about more than he probably realized. Seeing her name and her photo on Claire's phone, and seeing Claire cry, tied everything together in a way that made Ethan's chest tighten. Claire finally closed the phone slowly, almost painfully, as if shutting it made the situation heavier instead of lighter. She pressed the device against her leg and took a shaky breath. She wasn't angry that he had come in. She didn't scold him. She didn't hide behind an excuse. She just looked lost. hurt. Ethan had never seen her look so breakable. "I didn't want you to see this," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I didn't want anyone to know." Ethan stepped closer, careful and gentle. "Claire, what's going on?" Her eyes filled again, tears rising faster than she could blink them away. She tried to speak but stopped, pressing her lips together. She had always been the calm one, the steady one, the person who made the house feel warm even when his father grew distant or stressed with work. But right now she looked like she had been carrying something for a long time, and she was too exhausted to keep holding it alone. "I found something," she finally said, her words thin as paper. "Something I wish I hadn't." Ethan didn't push. He didn't ask for details. The way she spoke told him enough. His father had been working late for months, traveling more, answering calls in other rooms. Ethan had noticed the changes but assumed it was just work stress. Now those memories slid into place with a sickening clarity. Claire wasn't crying because of something she did. She was crying because of something done to her. He sat down beside her, leaving space so she didn't feel trapped. He wasn't sure what to say. Comfort felt too small, too simple for what she was going through. But silence didn't feel right either. He lowered his voice. "I'm here. Whatever this is, you're not alone." Claire covered her mouth with her hand as fresh tears came. She tried to apologize for crying. She tried to compose herself. But the truth was too heavy. She had held it in for too long. And Ethan, sitting there beside her, felt a protective ache in his chest. Not romantic, not inappropriate. Just compassion for someone who had been kind to him from the start. Someone who didn't deserve this heartbreak. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The room was warm but the air felt cold. The lamp beside the bed cast soft shadows across the walls, shadows that stretched and wavered like the doubts swirling inside both of them. Ethan kept his gaze low, giving her space, letting her breathe. He wasn't sure if he should ask questions or stay quiet. Everything about the moment felt fragile, like one wrong word could make things crack even more. Finally Claire whispered, "I don't know what to do." Her voice sounded small, scared, unlike the woman he knew. "I didn't want you to see me like this." Ethan shook his head gently. "You don't have to pretend. Not with me." Claire closed her eyes for a moment, as if trying to gather the strength to keep going. When she opened them there was still pain, but also relief. Relief that she didn't have to face everything in silence anymore. Ethan didn't push her to explain further, but the unspoken truth hung between them, impossible to ignore. Something had broken in the marriage, something deep, and Claire had stumbled into the proof of it. Ethan's heart felt heavy for her. He wished he could fix it or take away the pain or at least make her feel safe again. But all he could do was sit there, steady and present. Claire wiped her cheeks again, breathing slower now, calming herself inch by inch. She didn't look at her phone anymore. She didn't seem ready. And Ethan didn't ask her to. They sat quietly, the weight of the moment wrapping around them. The glimpse Ethan had seen on her screen replayed in his mind, but he forced himself not to jump to conclusions or say anything hurtful. He didn't know the full story. He didn't know the details. All he knew was that Claire was hurting, and his father was involved in that hurt in some way. Outside, the night deepened. The house stayed silent. The world felt smaller, more fragile. And Ethan understood that nothing about this weekend would be normal anymore. The moment he entered that open door had changed everything. The story of their family was shifting, and there was no going back to the way things were. Claire sat on the bed for a long moment after Ethan saw the message on her phone, as if her body had forgotten how to move. Her fingers shook slightly, and she tried to steady her breath. Ethan didn't know what to say, but he stayed close enough to show support without crowding her. The room felt heavier than before, the kind of heavy that came from secrets finally slipping into the open. Claire finally lowered her head and whispered a small apology, even though she hadn't done anything wrong in that moment. "I didn't want you to see that," she said. "I didn't want you to carry this." Ethan shook his head gently. "You don't have to handle this alone." Claire closed her eyes for a moment, gathering courage. Then she spoke, her voice breaking in small places. "For weeks I felt something changing. Not suddenly but slowly, like the color fading out of a picture. Your father stopped looking at me the same way. He came home distracted, he left early, he talked less. I tried to ignore it, tried to tell myself I was imagining everything, but tonight, I saw proof. She swallowed hard as fresh tears formed, but she brushed them away quickly, as if she didn't want to appear weak. Ethan didn't rush her. He let her speak at her own pace. It wasn't just a message, she continued. It was conversations, pictures, things he shouldn't be sharing with anyone else, things he shouldn't be feeling for someone else. Ethan's chest tightened. This was worse than he thought, but he kept his voice soft. Claire, I'm so sorry. She nodded, but the pain in her eyes didn't fade. When I married your father, I knew blending a family wouldn't be perfect. But I believed we would stay honest with each other. I believed we would fight for us. And now I don't even know what we're standing on. She crossed her arms over herself, not for warmth but for comfort, as if holding herself together. Ethan wished he had better words, something wiser than the quiet sympathy he offered. But every time he tried to speak, he felt the weight of the situation closing his throat. Claire looked around the room, as if seeing it differently now. I used to love this house. It felt warm and alive. But for months it hasn't felt like mine anymore. It feels like I'm just passing through it. Ethan understood more than she expected. He had noticed the silence between her and his father, the way they barely spoke at dinner when he was home. But he never imagined this. He thought it was work stress or exhaustion, not something that cut this deep. Claire sighed, sitting straighter. I shouldn't be falling apart like this in front of you. You're young. You didn't come here to hear about my marriage. I'm here, Ethan said, steady and sincere. Whatever it is, I can handle it. Claire gave him a grateful look, the kind that said she appreciated his presence more than she could express. For a moment the tears stopped, replaced by a tired softness. I didn't talk to anyone about this, she admitted. I didn't want to tell my sister or my friends. I didn't want anyone to look at my marriage differently. But the truth kept growing heavier. And when I saw what he sent her, I didn't know how to carry it anymore. Ethan leaned forward slightly. What exactly did you see? She hesitated, then answered, careful to stay within her own boundaries. It was emotional. Messages meant for someone he shouldn't care about that way. Words that used to be meant for me. That was enough. Ethan didn't need images or details. He understood the kind of betrayal she meant, emotional, private, deeper than a simple mistake. Claire wiped her eyes again and breathed slowly. It makes you question everything. Every memory, every promise. You start wondering if you were enough, if you missed signs, if you pushed someone away without realizing it. You didn't push him away, Ethan said quickly, firm but still gentle. You always tried. Anyone could see that. Claire let out a weak laugh, the kind that comes from sorrow rather than humor. Trying doesn't always save things. The room fell quiet for a moment. Ethan glanced at her phone lying face down on the bed. He didn't want to see the screen again, but he also couldn't stop thinking about the coworker. He remembered her being friendly, maybe too friendly, during a work barbecue last year. His father always talked about her talents, her energy, her fresh perspective. But he never imagined his father crossing a line. Claire saw his expression and answered the question he didn't ask. It's been going on longer than I wanted to believe. When I asked your father about her, he brushed it off. Said I was overthinking. But then tonight, I wasn't overthinking. Ethan put his hands together, trying to stay calm. Do you want to confront him about it? Claire froze, staring at the lamp on the nightstand. Part of me wants to scream. Part of me wants to pretend I never saw anything. I don't know which part is stronger yet. She took a long breath and looked down at her hands. You know, when you marry someone, you imagine the two of you on the same path, walking in the same direction. But somewhere along the way, he started walking somewhere else. And I didn't notice the moment he drifted. Her voice cracked again. She covered her eyes with her palms. It hurts, Ethan. It hurts more than I can say. I know, he whispered. She lowered her hands and looked at him, her expression raw but honest. Thank you for being here. You could have walked out, said it wasn't your business. But you didn't. Ethan gave her a soft nod. You matter to me. You've always mattered. Her eyes softened. I just don't know how to tell him I know. I don't know how to start that conversation. I don't know how to face what comes after. You'll figure it out, Ethan said quietly. And whatever happens, you won't go through it alone. Claire exhaled shakily. She stood slowly and walked toward the window, placing one hand on the cold glass. Outside, the street was still, the night calm and unaware of the storm happening inside the house. "You know what makes it worse?" she said softly. "I've been lonely for so long. Not because I wanted to be, but because I felt him slipping away, and I didn't know how to pull him back." She turned her head slightly. Loneliness inside a marriage. That's the kind of loneliness people don't talk about. Ethan watched her carefully. She wasn't someone who talked about her pain easily. Seeing her open up like this meant the burden had grown too heavy to keep inside. "I wanted to fix things," she said. "I wanted to believe we were still a team. But now I'm standing here feeling like the only one who still cares." She stepped away from the window and sat back down, her voice quieter. "I don't want to make a decision just because I'm hurt. I want to make a decision because it's the right thing to do. For me. For him. For all of us." Ethan nodded. "Then take your time. You don't have to decide tonight." Claire looked relieved by that thought. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I just need to breathe." She placed a hand on his arm, her touch gentle and grateful but nothing more. "You remind me that kindness still exists in this house." "Thank you." Ethan managed a small smile, though his heart still felt heavy. "I'm not going anywhere." Claire looked at the doorway, the hall beyond it, the whole house. "I guess part of healing is admitting the truth, even when it hurts." "And you did that," Ethan said. "You faced it. That's brave." She took another slow breath. "Then I guess tonight was the beginning of something. Not the end." Ethan nodded, not knowing what the future held but knowing this moment mattered. Claire wasn't alone anymore. Not in this secret, not in this pain. And as she looked at him with tired eyes and quiet gratitude, he understood that this conversation was the turning point, where things broke open just enough for healing to begin. Outside, the night moved on. Inside, the truth had finally been spoken, and nothing in their family would ever be the same again. Morning arrived slowly, the kind of morning where the air felt heavy before anyone even spoke. Claire woke early, not because she slept well, but because her mind never really rested. She sat at the edge of the bed with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, staring at the soft light spreading across the floor. She kept telling herself she should feel stronger, but the truth was she felt more fragile than she had in years. The memory of last night, the confession, the tears, the truth she shared with Ethan, pulled at her again the moment she opened her eyes. Ethan woke up in the guest room, rubbing sleep from his face. He didn't feel rested either. He kept thinking about Claire and how broken she looked when she told him everything. He wished he could protect her from the pain, but he knew some things couldn't be fixed by comforting words or quiet support. Some things had to be faced, and today Claire planned to face them. He walked to the kitchen, expecting to find the room empty, but Claire was already there. She stood by the window with a mug of coffee between her hands, staring outside as if trying to gather strength from the sunlight. When she saw him, she attempted a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Morning," she said softly. "Morning," Ethan answered. "Did you sleep at all?" "A little," she lied, or maybe she hoped it was true. "Enough to think clearly." Ethan stepped closer. "Are you okay?" She took a slow breath. "I'm steady enough. That's all I can promise right now." He nodded. He understood. Steady was better than broken. It was enough to start. She took a sip of her coffee, but her hands trembled slightly. "I made a decision," she said. "I'm going to tell your father today." The words felt final, like a lock clicking into place. Ethan's stomach tightened. He had known this moment was coming, but hearing her say it made everything real. "Are you sure?" he asked carefully. She nodded. "If I stay silent, I'll drown in this feeling. If I speak, at least I'll know I tried to save myself from more hurt." She looked at the counter, then at the floor, as if grounding herself. "This house deserves honesty. And so do I." Ethan couldn't argue with that. She had every right to face the truth head-on. Claire placed her mug down, pressing her palm against her forehead. "I don't want to fight. I don't want to scream. I just want answers. I want to know why he thought someone else was worth risking everything we built." Her voice cracked again and Ethan stepped closer, not too close, just enough to let her know she wasn't alone. "Whatever happens," he said, "I'll be here." She nodded again, more firmly this time. "Thank you." She reached out and briefly touched his arm. A small gesture filled with sincerity, not longing or confusion. A simple, human connection in a moment where she needed something solid to hold on to. She let her hand drop as soon as she steadied herself. "You should go about your day," she said quietly. "You don't have to be here for this conversation." "I want to be here," Ethan replied. "Not in the room, just nearby. In case you need anything after." Her eyes softened. "That means more than you know." The house filled with a strange silence as they moved through the morning. Claire cleaned the counter. Not because it was dirty, but because she needed something to do with her hands. Ethan sat at the table pretending to read something on his phone, though his mind wasn't focused on anything except what was coming. Around noon, they heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Claire froze. Ethan looked toward the front window, his chest tightening. His father was home earlier than usual. The timing felt sudden, too sudden, as if life refused to give Claire even a few more minutes of peace. She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with determination. "This is it," she whispered. Ethan didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The front door opened, keys jingling as his father walked in. "Claire? Ethan? Didn't know you were home," he said, surprised. He looked cheerful, unaware of the sharp truth waiting for him. Claire stepped forward. "We need to talk." Her tone made him stop immediately. He looked from her to Ethan, sensing tension. "Okay, what's going on?" Claire gestured toward the living room. "In private." Ethan moved toward the hallway, giving them space. He didn't want to eavesdrop, but he stood close enough to hear the tone of voices, not the words. He heard the initial confusion in his father's reply, then a shift to defensiveness, then to silence. The heavy silence that meant the truth had landed. Minutes passed. Then more minutes. Ethan stayed still, his heart tightening with worry. Inside the living room, Claire finally spoke clearly, voice trembling but strong. "I saw the messages." His father didn't answer at first. Then he mumbled something Ethan couldn't hear. Probably an excuse, a denial, a nervous attempt to soften what he had done. Claire interrupted him. "Don't tell me I misunderstood. I read everything. I saw how you spoke to her." Another long silence followed. Ethan could almost feel the guilt filling the space. Claire continued, her voice growing steadier. "I didn't come in here to fight you. I came here because I needed the truth from you." His father's voice rose slightly, not yelling but trying to defend himself. Ethan flinched at the frustration in his tone. But Claire didn't rise to match it. "No," she said calmly. "I'm done chasing excuses. I need honesty." Ethan's heart ached listening to the quiet strength in her voice. The conversation stretched longer, filled with pauses, broken sentences, and the weight of a marriage bending under the truth. Ethan felt helpless but stayed exactly where he promised he'd be. Finally, the living room quieted. Then he heard footsteps. Claire appeared in the hallway first. Her expression was tired, deeply tired but steady. She was holding her hands together tightly, as if trying to keep herself grounded. Ethan stepped toward her. "Are you okay?" She opened her mouth, but no sound came at first. She inhaled slowly. "I'm standing," she said. "That's something." He nodded gently. "What happened?" She looked down the hall where her husband still sat in the living room motionless. "We talked." He tried to explain. "I listened." She swallowed. "But the truth doesn't get softer just because someone regrets it. Do you know what you want to do next?" Ethan asked softly. Claire shook her head. "Not yet. But I know I don't want to make a decision while my heart is hurting this much." "That's fair," he said. She sat down on the bottom stair, rubbing her forehead. "It's strange," she whispered. "I thought the truth would crush me. But now that it's out, I feel lighter. Heartbroken but lighter. The hiding was what hurt the most." She looked up at Ethan, her eyes tired but honest. "I'm proud I told him. Even if it broke something between us, at least it broke honestly." "You were brave," Ethan said. "Really brave." She gave him a small, exhausted smile. "I didn't feel brave. I felt like my hands were shaking the whole time." "Bravery doesn't mean you're not shaking," Ethan said softly. "It means you face it anyway." Claire breathed out slowly, as if letting some of the pain leave her body. Maybe this is the start of healing, she said. Not for the marriage. For me. She stood again, straighter now. Thank you for being here. Last night, today. You gave me strength when I felt like I had none left. Ethan nodded, not trusting his voice. He didn't want to make the moment heavier. She looked toward the kitchen, then toward the window as if searching for something new. Whatever happens next, she said quietly, I'll be okay. It won't be easy, but I'll be okay. Ethan believed her. Claire wasn't just hurting. She was rebuilding piece by piece, breath by breath. As she walked toward the kitchen, sunlight fell across her shoulders. Her steps were small but steady. The storm had not passed, but she was no longer standing in it alone. And though their family's future was uncertain, one thing was clear. The moment Ethan entered Claire's room had changed everything, and the next chapter of their lives was finally beginning, not with fear but with truth.